right, we are here to take a look at the Arendal Sound 1528 tower speakers. That's what we're going to be talking about in today's video. Hey folks, I'm Gene Delasalo with Audioholics. We are here with Michael Stevens from Youth Man Reviews. Oh, wait a minute. No.
Golly.
We are at Michael Stevens' house from Youth Man Reviews. We got Dunn here, and we're going to talk about the 1528 towers. How you doing, Dunn?
I'm doing wonderful.
First, I want to thank Michael for allowing us to come into his house, take a listen, learn about these speakers. As you guys know, we had shipper problems from customs getting the speakers to us. So I tried to pull a Kobayashi Maru, and I brought myself to the speakers. And Michael's got every speaker of the 1528 here, sans, you know, the on-wall speaker and the smaller center channel. So what a great opportunity to come here to listen to Michael's systems, to look up close to these speakers, because Dunn, it's almost monolithic. Like 2010 kind of thing, right?
Yeah, they're pretty amazing. They're a very substantial speaker. It's as it should be for a flagship speaker.
Yeah.
They're very large. They're extremely heavy, and when you rap on them, they're literally like a concrete brick. I mean, they're very, very, very well built.
And I got to give credit to Michael. He moved these things during a hurricane by himself, and they're about 175 pounds a piece.
More than that.
53 inches tall. They're pretty substantial. I want to go over a little bit about the driver mechanics, and then we'll talk about the listening test. So just looking at the speaker from top to down, I love the fact that it's curved. They do that for a time alignment aspect, but also they do it for an aesthetic. I love the fact that the baffle is kind of offset from the front of the cabinet. They do multi-layer HDF, so these cabinets are substantial. When you hit on it here, it's consistent no matter where you hit on the cabinet. They're just really solid. Starting with the tweeter, this tweeter is amazing. It's a lithium-magnesium tweeter. That's the material that they used. And the reason why they went with the lithium-magnesium over beryllium is it's more easily sourced. It's very hard to get beryllium.
Easier to work with too, I believe.
Easier to work with. They claim it's lighter and faster than beryllium, but we're splitting hairs here when you're talking about this level of metallurgy. The bottom line is this tweeter,
it's phenomenal.
it had the detail, I would say, of like a really good AMT.
And it's kind of effortless. I mean, you know, I always talk about speakers not achieving or compressing at high levels of volume with a single 1-inch tweeter, which we all know. Didn't really seem to get that from these, you know, very per listen-like as far as the output and stuff. Just musical, great output. I think sizing these speakers to the room that you put them in is going to be important.
It's definitely critical. Yeah. So yeah, the tweeter, just the highs on this speaker was very articulate, really helped hone in on the imaging characteristics of the speaker. Then the mid-range, this is a really special mid-range. It's a carbon-graphene mid-range, and the way they sandwiched or layered it, it helps to distribute the breakup modes of the driver itself. And because of that, the out-of-band is really well behaved. The driver is very well damped, and these high-order crossovers, I think third or fourth order crossovers, the mid-range itself operates at a very limited bandwidth because they sealed the chamber on it to increase the sensitivity. Arendal told me that this mid-range alone, this 5-inch mid-range, actually has more output within its bandwidth than the dual 8s from the 1723s.
130 dBs, I believe, is what
it'll do 130 until it fails.
Which is insane.
Yeah. I think their spec on their website, I think the max SPL from an IEC standard is 118 max, 112 dB continuous. They don't really tell you the bandwidth of that measurement, so I'm not sure. But I could tell you, as we cranked up the volume, these speakers just sounded better to me.
It's a very high output system. I would imagine the bookshelves and the LCRs will kind of follow suit on that. And the center channel we're going to put up in a minute, which is massive. I've never seen a center channel that big ever.
Yeah, it's hard to grasp until you actually see it. Let's talk about the bass section. So there's 4 8-inch aluminum cone drivers with inverted surrounds on it. I love the fact that the baffle covers the surrounds. It's beautifully aesthetic.
Very organic, Gene. I think the speaker has kind of a organic look to it, or feel to it.
Yeah.
You know, nice curvature in the front. What I noticed a little bit, though, is we were sitting relatively close to it.
Yeah.
I think that the soundstage and image was a little bit high on it.
It was a little raised, for sure.
I think maybe the bookshelves in this particular room and setup, or maybe the LCRs, more listening height would be better. Unless you can do 12 or 14 feet back, I think that's an ideal distance.
I got you.
For these towers.
I agree with that, actually.
They're big room speakers.
So when you think about a speaker like this, it's got 4/8, right? That's a lot of surface area. It's actually got more surface area than a 15. So these things are bass capable. Now, if you look at the anechoic measurements on Arendal's site and you look at what Jay Iaghi did, you could see when he did the quasi-anechoic measurements, they start rolling off in the 50 hertz range. But the devil's in the detail. You got to look at the slope. It's not a typical fourth order slope that you get with a vented system. It's more like a second order. And the great news about that is when it's not such a steep slope, you get a lot of room gain. And when I measured the speakers in Michael's house, no matter where I put it or across his couch, we had real extension below 20 hertz. It was flat down to about 17. Yeah, consistent. So this speaker has a lot of room gain because it almost acts like a sealed system, but it has the output advantages of a ported system. So Arendal really did their homework, and part of that is because the speaker is so big, and if you want to have good usage of the port and not have chuffing and all that stuff, you want to have really long ports. These ports, I think they're about 5.5 inches diameter, and they're on the bottom. There's a single port, a massive port. And the reason why a couple of reasons why they put it on the bottom is they wanted to have that long port tube. And that's one way to accomplish it, by putting it on the bottom. Also, putting it on the bottom like that acts as a high pass. So
it makes it easier to place.
It makes it easier to place.
Like if it was a rear port, I think it's a little easier to place. And avoid some of that boundary gain as opposed to a rear ported speaker. Now we measured it exactly 1 foot from the back wall, which worked in this room. I would say 10 inches to 1 foot would be ideal on that, maybe even a little further out. If you can possibly do it. I know everybody can't, but guys, I want to reiterate to you how critically important it is, mechanical placement of your speakers and testing of the placement of it, starting with the stereo pair.
Yeah, for sure. So there's a lot of advantages to the system between having the port on the bottom so it actually couples to the floor, and it just, the way it plays the bass into the room. What I heard when I was listening to the bass was it was incredibly tight and linear. We didn't do any EQ at all in the system. We just ran it flat and we just worked on positional to get it right. And despite the fact that Michael's room is pretty lively, I even said it in my head. I go, it sounds like the RT16 here is in the 700 millisecond range. Sure enough, I measured right around that area.
Wasn't his theater room amazing?
His theater room was great.
Well done, Mike. That theater room was just off the chain.
I would love to hear these speakers in Michael's theater room for sure.
I was getting ready to say that. If you take these speakers, again, they want a really good amplifier. Even though, don't let the 89 dBs, I believe it is.
89, yeah.
Don't let that deceive you. These speakers want power. And we noticed when we turn it up, I think Michael had an amp that was about 330 or 350 watts.
Yeah, the Outlaw 2200
as we turn it up, they seem to really open up. Of course, they're brand new and whatnot, but I mean, put good power on it. If you put this in a good acoustically treated room and do some calibration time on it, I think you're going to experience magic with this system. I really do. So
people are wondering about the sensitivity because it's a large tower. You would think the sensitivity would be in the 90 dB area, 92, 93, like the 1723s. The reason why the sensitivity is a little lower on these speakers than their other series is they traded sensitivity for bass extension.
Absolutely.
So these speakers will play lower. They have more output at the low frequencies. And the fact that these drivers have so much good thermal management, you could put a 1,000-watt amp on these and you can get the levels up to reference that you want.
Isn't the mid-range, the magnet structure and the structure of it so heavy that it has to be attached to the front plate?
It had to be part of the weight. Yeah, great point.
Yeah, that and you know, you're going to get the higher volume if you, just like with a sub, a small sub with a big magnet and a lot of extension, a lot of mid-max on it. I think they took that mindset and it worked. I mean, it really worked.
Yeah, they didn't skimp on drivers. These things, they have a lot of BL because of the large magnet. So these drivers could play with a lot of output and a lot of thermal management on that tweeter. That tweeter did not compress at all.
Well,
the room itself was the problem where we were hearing a little bit brightness, not the speaker itself.
You can't really completely judge a speaker just from a brief outing. I know you've got the bookshelves. I'm going to see if Arendal will let me, use the towers so we can spend some time with them. I know Michael's going to use the system that we talked about to tow them in a little bit and play with them.
Yeah.
I'd love to see what these are capable of. I really would.
Yeah, for sure. Now, a couple of cool features about the speakers. First of all, the binding posts on were really high quality. Everything about the speaker is super high quality.
First class.
There's little jumpers on it, so if you want to adjust the tilt of the mid-range and the treble and the bass, you could do that mechanically with the jumpers. I don't think Michael's got the pre-production units. I don't think the jumpers are active on his speaker, so we didn't even mess with that. Personally, I'm mixed bag about having that option at all. I like to do my tuning digitally.
Well, that was real big in like the 80s and 90s and some of the speakers that were put out. But again, it's just more tools in your toolbox to calibrate the speaker. If you want to invest, I mean, you're going to invest the money and you get these, you want to invest the time, a mechanical placement, proper electronics match up with those, and acoustically treating your room. They got a winner on their hands. I'm really hard to think of a speaker under 10 grand that's going to really give these a run for their money. I know there's some great speakers out there, but these are flagship level speakers for under 10 grand.
Yeah, I mean, the build quality is certainly light years beyond anything I've seen in this price range pretty much. I mean, the closest competitors I think would be like the Paradigm Founder 120Hs, which have active filters in them.
That's a good point. Yeah, very, very similar. I think, I don't want to ruin everybody. Listen, absolutely. If somebody were to, if they made these speakers 25,000 a pair, I don't think anybody would have batted an eye at it, honestly.
It really is. I mean, when you see these speakers in person, you see the build quality, the craftsmanship, and I don't know, it's really impressive. Even the little magnetic grills that they have for it. Personally, I think it would be cool if they had different color options. I think even Michael said he'd like to see different color options on the grill. How bad would these look if you had red grill covers on?
I got some spray paint at the house, man.
No, but overall, I'm really impressed with what I heard, even though it was a non-ideal environment, just spending time listening to these speakers. They measured so incredibly linear in room that I had to actually retake those measurements multiple times. I'm like, what? Like they're completely flat. You could tell they did a lot of good in the crossover, so you don't need to send these out to any crossover guy to mod them. They use very high quality parts. That's the other thing too. When you look at the internals of these things, they're all air core, low gauge inductors, so they can handle a lot of power. The power resistors are those gold resistors on standoffs for thermal management. They use all high quality poly
the crossover
caps.
is a work of art on these. I mean, I want to thank Michael Youthman and his lovely wife for allowing us to come in here and being gracious and open-minded enough to kind of go through the, Michael never claims to be an expert. He doesn't claim to be he knows more than he says he does, but he never claims to be an audiophile, which is fine. I try to get him to pick up title. He said he'll never listen to it.
We're going to convert him to two channels.
We're going to try to convert him as best we can. We might have to kidnap him in a van or something and just play music over and over, but man, what a killer setup. Now we got to take that crazy, the biggest center channel I've seen some crazy center channels and mount that up for him and help him out.
Yeah, so just to give you guys a quick series overview, I believe these speakers only come in two finishes. They come in this gray kind of flat color, and they come in an ivory color. I would love to see the ones in white. I think those would look really stellar.
White, it's kind of an off-white. And being part Norwegian and Nordic, I'm pretty happy with that. Yeah. I love the little touches like with love from Norway. I thought that was cool. I mean, it's really neat.
So you got the Tower 8s. These are the big boys. You got the Monitor 8s, which have an 8-inch woofer, 8-inch mid-range, and it has, 5-inch mid-range and the wave-guided tweeter. Then you've got the Bookshelf 8, which is I'm supposed to be getting.
Bookshelf.
Which I can't wait to actually get those in.
You better have some super strong, super big bookshelves to put those on.
They're heavy speakers, yeah. And then you got the Center Channel 8 and then the Center Channel 8 Plus, which is the size of this tower turned sideways. Then you've got the slim speaker for on-wall purposes. They've got a nice product line in the 1528. I'm hoping somewhere down the road they come out with a 1528 level subwoofer. Even though the 1V and the 2V are great subs from the 1723s, we need to get an 18 or a 21 or something like that personally. But overall, I would say this is a beautiful lineup of products. They come with a 10-year warranty, 60-day trial period, so it's risk-free. You buy them. If you don't like them, you send them back. They pay the shipping both ways, which is a massive expense on a speaker this heavy. The only downsides, I would say, like Don noticed, they image a little higher. So in order to offset that, they offer a puck system that Michael doesn't have these on these speakers, but if you order these speakers now, I believe that they come complimentary. They're normally $400. So the puck system allows you to adjust the tilt of the speaker, which is very ingenious. I love the fact that they have that. If you're going to consider buying these speakers, I would get it while that promotion lasts.
And I'm sure that the aftermarket, like Isoacoustics, will probably make some Gaias and Via Blue make their UFOs or some kind of product to kind of go along with these speakers. But I think a little bit of tilt.
I would caution if you're going to put feet on it, you're going to make the speaker even taller. If you're going to make it taller, you should probably tilt it down or sit further away to compensate, because I think the way they acoustically converge somewhere between the mid-range and the top woofer.
Gene saying use caution when his front speakers are 7.5, 8 feet tall. Use caution on that.
Yeah.
So, but no, well done. I mean, they're absolutely beautiful. I was really intrigued when I saw them. I was like, man, because I just love that design, the timeline, the curvature on it. I thought it was really cool. And the company's always made great products. I mean, they've really made a big impact in the industry. And I think they've got a winner on their hands. I know it's not for everybody. They're a little out of most people's budget. But if you really end up, and it's a speaker that would serve equally as well as a theater speaker, as long as you don't mind looking at it, or even a baffle wall if you did like the LCRs, or as a 2-channel audiophile speaker. Not a lot of speakers can do that. I think it's a winner.
Why don't you talk a little bit about, let's talk a little bit about the listening of the speaker, because you put on tracks I was unfamiliar with. Why don't you talk a little bit about a couple of those tracks? They were very acoustic focused, very female focused, female vocals, because female vocals are hard to produce on speakers. Some speakers will sound chesty for female voices, or they sound kind of cupped hands.
They do.
I didn't hear any of that on this. Why don't you talk a little bit about that?
One of the things that you have to do when you're setting up a speaker and you're trying to position in a room is have music that you're familiar with. And like Gene said, the female vocal is very hard to produce. And female vocals like Tones and I, the song I played, very, very big space with a choir behind her. So there's a lot going on. Really good speakers, properly positioned, you'll notice it by the room opening up, not the room you're in, the room that is being played on the song. A really good pair of speakers will give you a sense of spaciousness and just 2-channel. That was excellent. Then we went to like Ghost Rider and we played some bassier tracks. We played some Dominique Via Me, which very dear to our hearts because we were the first ones to have her on years ago. Everything was detailed, but I will tell you, when we had them off axis straight ahead, they sounded good, but when we towed them in 1 inch, completely changed. And I'd like to be able to do that again.
So what I heard, even though this room, like I said, is not the ideal room for a speaker like this, what I heard was really precise imaging. Even though Michael doesn't have 100% symmetry, he's got one sidewall that's opened towards the front door, and then he's got a whole sidewall on the left side.
Which makes a difference.
It does make a difference, but we were between the toe-in and the fact that these speakers are so linear and they have such well-behaved on and off-axis behavior, we got really good imaging. Listening to Dominique's birds, the finger snapping, when I dialed that in electrically and then we positioned it well, it almost gave me a headphone effect when I was sitting at MLP at the main listening position.
That inch of toe-in, I know I've mentioned it, that made a tremendous difference in this room because of that same one has a wall, one has an opening.
Yeah.
So.
Her voice sounded beautiful. It never sounded nasally. It just sounded very intimate. And like you said, when you towed it in, the intimacy got even better. It got more focused. The bass extension it wasn't plummeting me with subwoofer-like bass, but the bass that was being produced was so tight, so clean, with no EQ. I didn't mess with anything here. I didn't do any magic or anything on that. I literally just set them up, listened, and I was like, man, you got some good bass.
We were in pure direct mode, I think, or there's some Marantz equivalent of that.
So to give you guys an idea, we're running the Cinema 30 AV receiver, preamping it out to the monoblock 2200s from Outlaw, which are about 350 watts or so at 4 ohms. So I personally would use a more powerful amplifier for a speaker like this.
400 or 500 watts or even more, especially with some of the new Class D amplifiers.
For sure.
That you can afford to buy big power. Man, I think these things will sing. They really felt like they opened up when we put the hammer down on them.
I would love to hear these speakers with the Marantz, the new Model 10 integrated amplifier with the purified module, with the high current purified module.
You know what they remind me of a little bit? It's like the Perlisten S7Ts when I first heard them, that just rightness to the sound and that unlimited power. No, the dynamic range was just crazy on it. I mean, very good speaker.
Yeah, overall, man, this is, like I said, these are really unique products in their space, just because of the build quality, the amount of output you get, the quality of the drivers, the internals, all that stuff. So if you guys are on the market for a speaker of this caliber, it would definitely behoove you to check these out, especially with the return policy that's so generous from Arendal Sound.
Wait till we get, hopefully both of us get to spend some the word intimate, I guess, in our own rooms, listening and towing and playing with them, playing with the different amplifiers and stuff. It'd be fun.
So I do plan on doing the bookshelf. I'm going to steal these bookshelf speakers from Michael when he's done, bring them over to my house and do a more detailed review. We are planning on doing the Monitor 8 as well. James Larson wants to do some spins on that, do some outdoor measurements. Well, we're going to wrap this up, guys. If you like this video, please hit the thumb up, hit subscribe. Don't forget about our Patreon channel at patreon.com/audioholics. We appreciate your support. You get direct access to me if you want to suggest video topics. And until next time, my friends, keep listening.